So anytime that there's a number first, this is how you factor them. So the very first step we got to do is multiply the first number by the last number. Right? So if you think about it like A, B, C, it's always going to be A and C. So if we do that, 7 times 1 is negative 7. Okay, so we have to figure out a number that when you multiply it, it's going to equal negative 7. And when you add it, it's going to equal 6. Alright, so this is how I always factor it, is I do the X or the diamond or whatever you want to call it. Just as a visual representation of what I'm looking for. Alright, so I want something that multiplies together for negative 7. And when you add it, it's going to equal 6. Alright, so I know that if I multiply 7 with 1, it's going to equal 7. But there's a negative sign, so it's going to be a negative 1. And 7 minus 1 equals 6. So I know that the two numbers are going to be 7 and negative 1. Alright, so then I'm going to rewrite this equation. So instead of 7m squared plus 6m, it's going to be 7m squared. And then we're going to add these two numbers to this equation. Plus 7. Make sure we write the exponent in there. Minus 1m minus 1. Alright, so now we have this equation. This equation is the exact same thing as this equation. It's just a little bit longer. So what we're going to do now is we're going to divide, or not really divide, we're going to split up this equation into two parts. This part and this part. And then we're going to just take out the greatest common factor of each one of these parts. So the greatest common factor of this part of the equation would be 7m, right? Because both of these have a 7 and both of these have an m. And then the remaining would be m plus 1. Alright, now if we go to this part of the equation, what do they have in common? Oh, they have negative 1 in common. So negative 1. And we're going to write out what remains, m plus 1. Right, because if you multiply negative 1 and positive 1, it's going to equal negative 1. Alright, so then we're left with this. So we always want to make sure, that this and this always have to be the same. That's how we know that the factoring worked. So that we see that they're both m plus 1, m plus 1. Okay, great. So then we're just going to rewrite 7m minus 1. Right, so we're putting together this number, and then m plus 1, right, because we got this part. And this is your answer, 7m minus 1, m plus 1. Right, it doesn't matter what order it's in. But that is how you factor. Okay, so if we look at more of the practice problems, so we just did that one. So for number 2, 3k squared minus 10k plus 7, we're going to multiply 3 and 7. It's going to equal 21. This middle number is negative 10, so we need something that multiplies together. And if you multiply the two together, it's going to be 21, but if you add them, it's going to be negative 10. We know that that's going to be negative 7 and negative 3, because a negative times a negative is always going to be a positive. Okay? So if you write it out again, 3k squared minus 7k minus 3k plus 7, and split up these two parts. Alright, and then we're going to take out the greatest common factor of this part. And the greatest common factor is just a k. So it's going to be 3. 3k minus 7, or k times 3k minus 7. But if we look over here, there's not really anything that you can take out. But you can always take out a 1 from an equation. So in this case, it's going to be a negative 1. Okay, so it's going to be a negative 1, and once you take out a negative 1 from that, what remains is 3k minus 7. Okay, 3k minus 7, 3k minus 7. Okay, they're the same. We did it right. So the answer is k minus 1 and 3k minus 7. Okay. Okay, and for the third one, see, I even made a mistake when I did this one. So it's important to remember negative signs in this. So if you look at the equation, it's 5x squared minus 36x minus 81. All right, 5 times negative 81 is negative 405. So we need something that multiplies together to get negative 405, and if you add it together, it's negative 36. All right, so it's going to be negative 45 and 9. See, originally I accidentally put negative 9 here. So see, everybody makes mistakes. So we know that negative 45 plus 9 is going to equal negative 36. All right, we're going to split up these two parts of the equation after we rewrite it. Take out the greatest common factor. In this case, it's going to be 5. In this case, it's going to be 9. We see that x minus 9 is in both of them. Great. So the answer is going to be 5x plus 9 and x minus 9.